Welcome to episode number 3 of the Operations Excellence Podcast. Mark O'Donnell here at the fabulous studios for Growth Mode Technology in wonderful East Syracuse, New York on a beautiful sunny spring day before the spring equinox.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's one for you.
Ready for that.
And today we're going to have a conversation with my good friend, Matt Masur, owner and founder of Growth Mode Technology.
How's it going?
It's excellent. And Matt, we've known each other now for, I think, going on about 3 years or something close to that. One of my favorite people in the business world because of your success and everything you've done, but also just because of who you are as a person, and I really appreciate that. So I want to say,
well, thank you.
Thank you for everything that you do every day.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. And I'm excited because, you know, what we've been able to do here is build something where you can get the word out about the awesome things that you do. And, you know, over the last few years, as you mentioned, as we've come to know each other, I've learned a lot about your business, and it's pretty neat because even though they're sort of radically different ways, both of us are focused on making other people's businesses better.
Exactly.
And it's kind of neat to see, you know, like I said, folks that have a similar goal but work in a different fashion at it. So
right.
That's pretty cool.
And we've actually done a couple of seminars, free seminars together, and those have been fascinating because you're exactly right. We're both trying to make organizations better and help them achieve the goals that they're trying to reach.
Yeah.
But we bring different sets of skills and experiences to that and come from it different angles at it. And
right.
It's been, you know, I love to tell people about my friend Matt, who in some ways is the classic techno nerd, right? Grew up with Radio Shack stuff, and I love the stuff you have around the office. But you're unique in the respect that you're really good at relationship building. You know, so you're not just the tech guy that's comfortable with tech.
Yeah, that's the key, I think, to any business. And as a tech guy, that's a challenge for me, right? Because I am naturally kind of the stereotype. You know, I can be very antisocial, but you can't be if you want to run a business. And that's one of the things that I've come to find. And I found pretty early that all of it doesn't really matter what business you're in, but that personal relationships is really the key. And that's, like you said, in networking, things like that, that is no doubt where I've found the majority of my business and my success is from building those relationships and networking with different professionals around town. But it's not easy because I am not one of those, just walk up to a stranger and strike up a conversation kind of fellas. So,
I understand.
It's been quite a journey, but that is absolutely the key.
Yeah, I get it, right? With my background in engineering, right? There's a certain part of me that's very comfortable with data and numbers and analyzing and problem solving, right? But, I tell people I'm an introvert and they don't believe me, right? And there's some part of me that's still true about, but I have found that I love people. And I've gotten through that fear by just doing it. Yeah. Right. And learning along the way what works and what doesn't. And it's interesting. You talk about relationships because when I'm working with clients, and it doesn't matter if it's leadership development, one-on-one or with a group, or if it's organizational development and strategic planning, right? It's ultimately all about relationships. Yeah. Right. And leadership, you can't, and people, when they start a leadership development program with me, sometimes they have an aha moment because we spend a good chunk of time where they're looking at themselves in great detail. Yeah. And they're doing a lot of self-evaluation and what are their dreams and aspirations and what's their life's purpose. And because the truth about leadership is you can't lead others if you can't lead self. Right. Right. So it starts with self, and then it expands out to this understanding that if you really want to form true relationships, there's two key words I always try to stress. It's trust and empathy, right? That if you want to build relationships based on trust, which ultimately is what you want, whether you're talking about a friend, right, in your personal life or your significant other, or certainly in business, right? Whether it's a team member or a customer or a supplier, those relationships based on trust are the home runs, right? But to truly be able to do that, you need to be able to practice empathy, right? And empathy is very different than sympathy. Yeah. empathy, I love to use the saying of walking in another person's shoes.
Sure.
Right? That's ultimately what empathy comes down to. It's not just making the effort to understand how somebody else feels, but why, what's driving that emotion.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not necessarily agreeing, or passing judgment one way or the other. It's in the effort to understand the other person.
Right.
And something happens in human relationships that, in any kind of human relationship, once one individual is making that effort to understand, most people will reciprocate in kind.
Yeah.
And now there's a connection at a whole different level. Now if we understand each other on not just how we feel, but why we feel a certain way, now we can move to a whole different level of a relationship. Right? And that, to me, is the beginning of true leadership. Right?
Yeah.
We focus a lot on EQ. And I think one of the reasons you and I connected initially is because I know for me, I initially, like almost off the bat, like this guy's EQ is off the chart. Like you get it. You understand very well how to connect with people. You are empathetic, right?
Sure.
Right. But you also have an understanding of your own emotions, and you have the ability for self-regulation to not let the, tougher emotions cloud your judgment.
Usually.
Most of the time,
Yeah.
right? We're all human, right? And you have this internal drive, this motivation, this fire. Those are all components of EQ.
Sure.
Which at the end of the day, right, there's no one predictor of somebody's success in leadership, but certainly one of the most powerful ones is people with highly developed EQ.
Right.
And I'm always fascinated when I come across somebody in their, a 20-something or 30-something that has a really high EQ.
Yeah.
Because that's not impossible, but it's not as common.
Right.
Because for most people, to develop that level of EQ takes some life experience.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure you could relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's, a lot of those things are the things that I think parents and everybody try to instill in you at a younger age. But even though you may know those things or have been told them many times, like you said, it seems like we're all very hard-headed, and it's until you really live it that you're like, oh, yeah, what they've been telling me is actually what I should have been,
Right.
But experience is just the key to everything, especially in relationship building, because even that, it's not just a matter of putting yourself out there, but it's, how.
Right.
And there's folks, I think we've all, I'm sure, encountered folks who try a little too hard.
Yeah.
It's like, this guy drives you crazy.
Right.
And it's very easy to do unintentionally. So I think, there's nothing like life experience. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of 20-somethings that have had a ridiculous amount of experiences and come out, I think even... I don't know. I think even more so today, I feel like, even than when I was sort of that age. I think you're seeing a little more sophisticated young folks, if for lack of a better term.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
But, and there's still, of course, the other end of the spectrum, which is always amusing when people complain, these young people these days, they don't want to come to work. Like, I remember when I was 20, I didn't want to go to work either. Like,
right.
This is not new.
Sometimes you got to guard it because we sound like our parents.
Yeah.
We come across that way, right?
Yeah.
But you bring up a really great point, and maybe we should delve into that a little more because I think it's very interesting, right? That there's a lot of 20 and 30-somethings that have had experiences very, very different than what you and I had growing up, all right? I mean, you take the whole social media thing
Sure.
that has become what it is today, and I often say, and friends of mine that I have who are my age, we're all like, oh, thank God social media wasn't around when we were teenagers, right? So that you add that to it, and then the pandemic, right? So, and the whole dynamic of things is very different, and I think you're right. For people to navigate that and survive it with some level of sanity, I think they've almost naturally developed a higher level of EQ if they come through the other side of that. Is that what you've seen?
Yeah. And, it's interesting when you talk about that because I completely agree with you. I think the pandemic was huge for that generation. There was a lot that was already happening,
right.
Like as you mentioned, but I don't think a lot of us, I'll say adults, really understand the perspective of young people during that because
right.
It was different for us. Some of us, it wasn't different at all. There's a lot of people that still had to go to the office every day and they didn't miss a beat.
Right.
But for kids, it was a really unique experience. And,
right.
And I can tell you my wide range, my oldest daughter was a senior in high school. Her second half of the year was remote, and they didn't really know what to do,
right,
or how to go about it.
Right.
And a lot of the regular experiences she didn't get. College visits were virtual only. So, her and all her peers,
she didn't have.
and almost, she really at this point wishes that she would have had the opportunity to actually visit some more campuses and things like that.
Sure.
And there's just so many things like that we sort of take for granted. Like I said, it might have been a little different, an interruption for us, but for young people, it was a radically different everything.
Right.
And how they dealt with that.
Right.
Is definitely different than the way the rest of us or adults did, I guess I'd say. So I think that really shaped it, and also just made them more aware.
Right.
I feel like I think young people are paying more attention to the world than young people in previous generations, possibly to their detriment. I don't know. I go back and forth on this. We were talking on our show the other day about the fact that young people don't drink at nearly the rate that every other generation has.
That maybe is a good thing.
And it is, right? We all know the horrible things, especially with underage drinking that happens. But I wonder at the same time, do we lose some of the other, the social aspects of, why were we partying and getting together and doing these things? And is it being replaced because they're wise enough to just not make those mistakes? Or is there a problem that's, leading to this side effect that is, I guess, positive? But, that's the part that I'm not really sure of.
I think like most things, it probably has multiple facets to it.
Sure.
Some are probably good and some not so much. But we could probably take, several hours, delving into that. I would like to keep with the younger generation discussion for a second, though, and transfer it now to the business side, because I know with your growth here, right, you've done a ton of interviewing and hiring, and a fair number of them from the generations that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Have you found that it takes a certain effort to really make the effort to connect with these folks from this generation where they are and meet them where they are to try and understand them? Or how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, that's different. It's definitely unique, right? Their values, their approaches to things are a little unique. I don't want to say their values are different. I think their values, their convictions are almost a little stronger. We all have the way we wish things were.
Right.
And then how much deviation we're willing to accept from that. Right. And I feel like they are willing to accept less deviation than the way things should be. And honestly, I think that's the same kind of mindset that a lot of folks come to in their older age.
Right.
And these young folks are just figuring it out sooner, and they're just kind of over the nonsense that we all sort of put up with for a couple decades before we said we're over it.
That's really interesting you say that, because one of my aha moments is when I realized, and this was probably a couple years ago now, and working with some clients and talking with people from the generations, I guess, we're talking about. And it was a real aha moment for me, because it was obvious to me that they had figured out at a very young age the importance of work-life balance and putting a lot of emphasis on that, where certain things, when it came to the jobs they would accept, were non-negotiable to them. And I didn't get to that point in my life until I was in my early 50s, to be honest with you, right? I mean, I was from the generation, my father was a World War II vet, and, you worked hard and you put your head down, and that's how you got ahead.
Yep.
Right? You worked hard and opportunities would arise. You didn't rock the boat. And I think I actually say kudos to them for figuring that out earlier, because I think there are certain things I bypassed or sacrificed, right, in my career journey, that if I had to do it over again, I don't know if I would have made the same choices with the wisdom or knowledge I have now, whatever you want to call that. So I do think that there are some learnings, and you kind of hit on it, and I wouldn't necessarily know that as values. I think their experience formed in the kind of crucible that they've grown up in. They've attained a certain level of knowledge in some things, I think, that took us decades longer.
Right.
That's a good thing.
The other side of that is I feel like they don't buy into the scam the way the rest of us sort of did, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
This whole idea that if you just work real hard,
right,
you will have a nice house and a car and $1 million in the bank. And the reality is that's just not true.
Right.
And again, that's one of those lessons that took many of us many years to figure out. When you put in 20 years of labor and you work your ass off and you see, somebody who didn't rise above you and things like that. And that's something that they're very well aware of.
Yeah.
And I think just not willing to put up with, for lack of a better term. And it's, to answer your previous question, how do I navigate that? It's very interesting because I am a radically pro-worker individual.
Mm-hmm.
And when a person like that becomes a business owner, it becomes kind of interesting because, I'm probably one of the only pro-union business owners you'll find around town. I genuinely believe in that sort of thing because you can see the data of the positive impact on all of society.
Right.
And I also have always been a strong believer in the people are who make your money, and especially in my business, it's a service industry.
Sure.
I don't sell a widget. It's my people that make 100% of our money.
Well, your people are at your clients' places of business. They're the face of your company.
100%.
They're interacting. Your clients interacting with them on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
They represent you.
Yep.
All the time.
You're not wrong. And so those are the types of things that having that in the back of my mind from years of being a worker or being on the other side of that,
right,
to try to provide that best environment opportunity to where I'm not one of those bosses that I would have railed against back in the day.
Right.
It's a challenge, because that's the other side of we all look at hey just be nice to everybody and just be good to everybody and we can and we do, but
right.
There's real challenges. What do you do when somebody's not pulling their weight?
Right.
Are you do you become the micromanager boss that drives people crazy, or do you find the right way to lead and coach them to get them to where they need to be? And that's the type of thing that I like to focus on because, again, there's just so many things that whether I've experienced or whether the world has voiced, that stuff doesn't fly anymore. And,
right.
And again, just back to your question, how do I navigate that? Knowing some of that stuff,
right,
is one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
The old school, we're family here. That is one of the biggest red flags you could ever give to a 20-year-old if they see that in your job listing.
Yeah.
We're family here generally means we're a very dysfunctional family, and there's things like that are kind of these traditional things that,
right,
in many cases, people did innocently and without thinking about it, but they've become these telltale signs that these young people know it.
Yeah.
And then, other folks kind of throw it out there and wonder why these young people are looking at them funny.
Right. Right.
I don't know.
But you bring up and to kind of paraphrase what you're talking about, right? And this is one of the many reasons why you and I think have become such good friends. I think we come from a similar mentality, right? And the true successful leader, at least in my experience, and also just, for people I've worked for too, that were really good, right? It's really more about you're only going to succeed if your people succeed, right? You succeed through your people, through your team.
Yeah.
And the true job of the leader is to set them up for success and continually be looking at ways to help them be successful, right? And that means being empathetic, right? Sometimes listening, right? Sometimes just being a sounding board, right? When they haven't having the ability to form those relationships based on trust that they will come to you, even if it's a problem on the home front, right? That they know they can trust and depend on you.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And it goes to a concept of leadership called servant leadership, right? That really the best leaders, you understand that it's about serving the team.
Yeah.
To really set them up for success.
Right.
Sometimes, right, that means having a difficult conversation, right, without being a micromanager, but letting them understand, look, we've got to fix this, and here's why. And here's, why it's important to you and to the whole organization that we fix this, right?
Absolutely. And that's, that also goes back to something that I know you've talked about with folks as well, is you have to take care of those things, you know, because if you have one member of the team who's dropping the ball,
right,
and you're sort of, you know, allowing that, everybody's going to see that.
right.
And, you know, that's where that I want to be as empathetic and understanding as possible, but at the same time, you know, we got to figure out how to get the job done, sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's, you know, as an employer, that's where a lot of those challenges come in. But
oh, sure.
the nice part about it, I'll say, is when you are empathetic like that, and when you are definitely on people's side, they know that and they recognize your challenges.
Right.
I had one person who was an amazing person, absolutely one of the most favorite people you could ever be around.
Right.
Absolutely horrible employee, just the worst. And unfortunately, I probably let it go on a little too long. But when I finally let them go, I've never had anyone thank me before. They appreciated that, they recognized that I'd let them go probably longer than they should have.
Right.
And they recognized that I gave them every chance. And
Right.
they thanked me for what I did while they were with me.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing when you're firing somebody.
I
don't know how to
experience.
feel about that.
Yeah, years ago when I was working down south, I had an engineer that worked for me, and she had the misfortune of being an industrial engineer, which is my undergraduate background, and she struggled. She was struggling, and literally, I found myself pretty consistently like completing her project reports and things like that, and you know, the plant manager's like, you know, you're not really helping her, and
right.
You're right. Right. So I sat her down and we had a great conversation. I put her on a performance improvement plan, right? And we met regularly, and it just wasn't working, you know, and I felt terrible. Right.
Yeah.
She was, again, like you described, wonderful person, you know, kind of person you want as part of your team as far as personality, and do anything for anybody, but just wasn't really getting the job done. Right.
Yep.
So for the betterment of the team, we had to let her go. But I've never had, I mean, I won't mention the woman's name who was the HR director of the company, but I'll never forget it because the HR director was in tears. I was almost in tears, and the woman was thanking me for letting her go, going, I appreciate everything you've done. You've gone above and beyond the call, and I'm going to go change my life and go do something else because I've determined this isn't what I want to do.
Yep.
I was speechless when she left, right? But so if you do try to do the right thing, but then ultimately, you know, sometimes you do have to make those tough decisions.
Well, and
if you handle it right.
Exactly like you said. That's the other thing too, is as a human, and you can be understanding.
Right.
We all understand that not everything is a perfect fit for everybody, and just like you said, that wasn't necessarily a good gig for her.
Yeah.
And, you know, given her the opportunity, like we all have, you know, many of us have tried many different things or changed careers and that's part of life. And, you know, to recognize that, I think is value of a leader. And, you know, I'm not going to hold it against you. This didn't work out, and I wish you luck in something that is a better fit for you, you know?
Yeah. I mean, she was genuinely happy, almost relieved.
Yeah.
And so that was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears a little bit,
Sure,
because you've had such phenomenal growth in the last few years with your business here. I'd love to hear about some of the, you know, significant challenges you've had, because growth is a great thing.
Yeah.
But uncontrolled growth, and I don't see that with you, but it can be as destructive as companies struggling, right, to make enough to survive.
Yeah. There's definitely been a lot of challenges, and I would say we are sort of lucky in that our growth has been very steady, but not like an avalanche.
Right.
Like, you know, in our business, we've got a couple different businesses now, but primarily in the IT services business, that's something where most companies don't have thousands of clients, you know? And so as we add one or two a month, it's a huge boost to the business, but again, it's not incredibly overwhelming. At the same time, all those challenges are there because everybody new that we bring on has their own unique situation. So the biggest challenge that I've had in business is trying to get myself out of it, to be quite frank. And I don't, that sounds like, he doesn't want to do anything.
I know that's not the case.
And it's not. And that's the part that, again, unless you're sort of in this position, it's very hard to wrap your mind around. But the reality is, and I've seen so many people say this, and I think it's absolutely true. If you want your business to be able to actually scale and grow properly, you have to get it to the point where you, the owner, the founder, is basically irrelevant.
Right.
So basically, I could disappear for a month and nobody miss a beat.
Right.
And we're not there yet.
Right.
And every time I think we're getting there yet, we continue to grow more, and it kind of adds more to the pile, and it's chasing the dragon a little bit. But that's one of the biggest challenges just in general. Right. And again, it's one of those things that has become sort of a recurring problem with growth, right? Mm-hmm. Like I said, we get it handled, and then suddenly there's more. But luckily, I've been able to find a lot of great folks. Mm-hmm. And those people I've been able to really hit the ground running. Again, I'm very big on empowering the right people to just do the job rather than oversee it. So as much as I've been involved in literally every aspect of the business, I'm not one of those types of guys who has to be.
Right.
And I very much want people that I can just hand this to and say, go and execute. And so luckily I've been able to do that.
You're delegating responsibilities, not mm-hmm. task.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing, right? There are a lot of managers, 100%. Supervisors, leaders. Oh, I'm delegating, but they're only delegating task, meaning they tell exactly, this is what I want you to do, how I want you to do it.
Yep.
Instead of saying, you have responsibility for this.
Yep.
Right? And let them, like, okay, I'd be happy to tell you how I've done it, but you can do it any way you want as long as you get the results.
No, and that's exactly my philosophy. I mean, right down to, I don't even like really counting time. And for our clients, we actually don't even bill by time. I don't really believe in that. But, for our employees and for our team members, it's exactly like you described. We've got a help desk. Well, we've got somebody who's in charge of the help desk, and she's been phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And we've just given her the reins.
Yep.
And, you are the queen of the help desk, and set that system up, stay on top of it as we add new employees under you. And we got a few now. You're the one to bring them up in those procedures and things of that nature. And you can't do that with everybody, right? Unfortunately, you can't necessarily take an entry-level person and go, hey, manage this department.
Right.
But when you get some folks with a little bit of experience and a little bit of time with you and trying to understand your company's procedures, you can do that, and we've got that in multiple facets now of different folks that, your job is to take care of the customer.
Right.
End of story.
Right.
And, whatever they need, whether it's you got to pull in other members of the team or whatever. And like I said, we've been lucky enough to find some really awesome folks that are able to run with that. So
let's delve into that question a little bit more, because one of the things I've heard from a lot of clients mm-hmm. for 3+ years now is the difficulty in attracting and retaining quality talent. And you and I actually did a couple seminars.
We put on a road show on that topic.
Yeah, we did. I had a lot of fun doing it, by the way. Right? So talk about how you've navigated that, because it's so, everything you described makes perfect sense, right? But it's so important as you're growing the business to bring in the right kind mm-hmm. of people that ultimately can grow and that you will be able to delegate responsibility to, but also fit with the kind of culture that you're building here.
There's a little bit of luck, I'll say, quite frankly. My first full-time employee for Growth Mode Technologies was our IT employee. His name's Anthony. He's still with us. Just had a new baby last night, actually.
Congratulations,
Anthony. But he was the first full-time employee I brought on when I had the need to grow beyond just myself. And it literally was pure luck that he happened to be. I interviewed a couple people for that position. He was the best for it, and he's been one of the best members of our team to date, and he's the longest standing.
Right.
Like I said, that was just a matter of pure luck. But I'll tell you, one of the things that won me over is he came to his interview and he was very upfront and straightforward and said, I have a little one at home, and on these particular days sometimes I got to run and grab her from school and things like that. And very upfront with anything that might have been a deterrent, mm-hmm. Which to me was a positive rather than a negative.
Right.
And just immediately realized that this is somebody that I could work with and had the right kind of energy, for lack of a better term, to do what we do. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, honestly, I've had a ton of success a couple different ways. So one is just sort of networking, almost the same way I found business. I found some good people and put it out there.
Right.
I found some of the traditional paid job board sites these days are an absolute nightmare, and they will take all of your money and show your help wanted ad to 5 people. And in California, when I'm trying to hire somebody in Syracuse,
Right.
it's a nightmare.
Right.
And I've spent lots of money on those and gotten nowhere. And almost everybody that I've found has been a matter of referrals and putting things out there and things like that. And then the other method that I've gone to when that has failed me is just straight up sort of recruiting.
Yeah.
People that I have seen, that I have encountered in the business world and throughout my travels that I know would be a good fit for this position.
Right.
And I'm just going after them and, hey, what,
Right.
can I possibly make you an offer that would get you to join us, sort of thing? And,
Right.
and I can't always.
Right.
Some people have, if you work for a real big company, there's a chance that you're making a salary that I can't necessarily match. But we try to make up for it, too, in the environment, like we
Right.
talked about. Like,
Right.
this is a place that you would prefer to work.
Right.
Most of our positions come with a 4-day work week, which almost nobody offers. And people absolutely love that. And, by offering some of these extra things that don't cost the company quite as much money, we're able to, offer a better opportunity and attract some people.
So a couple of concepts you touched on there, which are, I think, home runs. If you can do it, recruiting and finding employees, future team members, either through referrals or through people you've already gotten to know, right, through other sources, you've already got way ahead of the curve because you know these people. Or if it's a referral, the people who are referring them know you.
Yeah.
So they have a pretty good idea of who you are and how you operate, and they're not going to refer you somebody that's not going to fit.
Yeah.
Typically, right? That's a great way to go about it if you can.
Yeah.
Right? And the other thing I love, and you and I talked a lot about this when we did the Traveling Road Show on culture, right? Man, pay is important, obviously. Everybody works for a living, right? We all have aspirations financially and have bills to pay and et cetera, families to take care of. That's critically important. But if somebody is only coming to you because you're the best offer on the table today, and that's the only reason they're coming, it's very likely they won't be there long.
Right.
Because somebody else eventually is going to pay them more.
Right.
Right. And so why are they going to stay? And so the 4-day work week, and I'd love to hear more too about the culture, because I think you've built a really nice culture. And I got to meet, I guess it was back shortly after, between Thanksgiving and New Year's, when I, not just out of the goodness of my heart because I am such a nice guy, but because of everything you've helped me with. I said, I owe you lunch, and so I brought lunch in from Dinosaur Barbecue, which was a lot of fun for your people, and it was it was so comfortable sitting with that group.
Yeah, I mean, we've got some great people, and the one thing that I will say that kind of pulls things together is our content has been something that's helped me land a lot of these employees.
Yeah.
So for the same reasons that we're making content about our business, to let people know who you are, I am very vocal about my kind of values and things we offer and things we do in the business all over social media. And everyone who's been a solid candidate, whether they got the gig or not, has come in here and talked about how they looked into us and saw our stuff. And one of the most recent hires that we've had, a young guy on the IT side who has been absolutely phenomenal. He came in my office and sat down and told me my life story.
No kidding.
He's like, so when you were 14 and you worked at that computer store and you did you could tell that he literally dug in, which was awesome as an employer. It's great to see you kind of do your research, right?
But
But also he was already sold, and he was like, this is, I see what you do, and I see you support these things in the community, and like, this is a company I want to work with.
Right.
And so it's things like that that really help, like you said, seal the deal. And with somebody that offers, another $1 an hour or the same, you go, well, no, I'm going to stick to the place that's good people.
Right. That's a place you want to come to work every day.
Yeah. Right. And the money, though. That's the other part of it, too, is as much as, we're not a massive corporation.
Right.
we are a rapidly growing, successful business, and as new people come on, they make our business better. They allow us to generate more revenue, and I'm a huge believer in immediately kind of rewarding that. So
Sure.
there's no like annual review structure, things like that. If you're doing a good job and we have the funds, you get raises and bonuses and things of that nature. So I really try to be up there on the pay as well. But
Right. Well, at the end of the day, you're sharing the success of the company with the people that made you successful.
100%.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Matt, it's been such a pleasure talking with you today. As always, I want to thank you for coming
Well, thank
on
you, Mark.
this
It's fun.
show. Yeah, yeah. And thank you again for creating this opportunity with the studio and everything you've
Absolutely.
done with the content here at Growth Mode.
I'm so glad you've taken to it like a duck to water, man. It's
I tell people I talk for a living, I guess. That's kind of what I do.
no, I mean, it's, we've had a number of people here at Growth Mode Content. They've done an incredible job. They've loved it. They've been excited. Some didn't really know what they were even signing up for.
Yeah.
They just knew they needed some stuff. You were a guy who has been in the conversations with me since I first had this idea many months ago.
Yep.
You got it instantly, and you were ready to go many months ago.
Yeah, I don't think you finished the entire pitch, and I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. Yeah.
But it's great to see, you've had some great guests in here. We've all learned some awesome stuff, and I'm so glad it's working out for everybody.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks to our audience, and we'll see you next time. And thanks to our wonderful producer, Michael, over there. Michael, you're the man. Mark O'Donnell back with part 2 of episode 3 of our podcast, Operations Excellence. And today, for our guest, we have Jennifer Jedik. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for coming in. It's really a pleasure to have you. It's been great getting to know you through the Cicero Plank Road Chamber of Commerce, and you are the current president of the CPR Chamber, correct?
I am, yes.
And that went into effect when?
That was January 1st of this year.
Wonderful. And how long is the term as president?
2 years.
Okay, so you signed up for a full 2 years.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure you're going to do a great job. And in full disclosure, I'm also a member of the Cicero Plank Road Chamber, and that's how we've gotten to know each other a little bit. Jennifer, if you could, your background is in banking. You're currently with the SECNY Federal Credit Union. Why don't you tell a little bit to our audience about your background?
Absolutely. So I have been with SECNY for, it'll be 6 years, April 1st. So April Fool's Day. I was actually shocked when they called me that day too, and let me know I could come in, and I was just like, oh, really? We'll see if this is real or not. I started off with no prior experience, worked my way up, and I am the branch manager, have been for almost 2 years now. So that is my trade during the day. I enjoy it quite much. We are currently running a great promotion, 2.25% off for refinances through the end of the month. So we're looking to try to save money for anyone we can. Outside of that, I am the president of the Cicero Plank Road Chamber of Commerce, as you know. I have been a part of the chamber for 3 years. Mm-hmm. We are a great group of people. It's a lot of fun, which is kind of what got me hooked. And I joined the board about a year and a half prior to becoming the president. They asked me to be the secretary at that point. I had just got my bearings in the secretarial role, mm-hmm. and they asked me if I would become the president. So I accepted the position, and we just are kind of trying to rock and roll with our committees and all of our events that we have coming up. So other than that, I am a dog mom of 2.
Excellent. I'm a dog person. I love dogs.
Absolutely. So on my personal time, that's pretty much what I do is hang out with the dogs, walk them, train them.
What kind of dogs?
I have a black lab and a golden retriever.
Oh, I love big dogs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My last dog was a golden retriever chow mix.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, but he had the golden retriever mentality. Loved everybody. He didn't understand why cats didn't want to play with him.
Oh, yeah. It's so sad.
Yeah. So I want to go back in a minute to the chamber because as I said, in full disclosure, I'm a member as well, and I've been a member now for I think about 7-8 months, and it is a great group, and I want to talk more about that for our listeners. But I want to hear more about your journey, and I'm fascinated, and I was from the first time I met you. You started off at the ground floor, at SECNY, and now you're a branch manager. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey into a leadership role and what that was like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I said, I had no prior experience. So when I started, they were teaching me about checks, about different kinds of transactions, loans, just how to process payments at that point. Once I became familiar with the basics, I entered a manager-associate program. So we have a program that kind of sets you up to get into leadership roles. So then when the opportunity arises, we can then let you progress into those positions. So we always like to interview, and we like to promote from within. So if we don't get any interviews from internal employees, then at that point we will go ahead and put the applications out to the public.
Right.
We usually end up getting quite a few from our internal applicants. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, we have that program, the manager associate program, so that we can, train and just get people ready for those roles when they do open up.
Right.
I was in the manager associate program for probably about a year, and then a assistant manager position opened up at the North Syracuse branch, where I am located now.
Okay.
So I applied and received that position, luckily. I was in that position for almost 2 years before the branch manager role opened up. I applied for that, and I received that. And I had already been a part of the chamber at that point.
Right.
My assistant manager role is when I had joined the chamber.
Right.
So, it was just kind of opening the door to the community, getting to know people from within the credit union, our members, and then obviously the members within the chamber as well. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, you've had quite a ride in the last few years.
Absolutely.
So it's fascinating and wonderful to hear that not only does SECNY promote from within, but they're developing that talent within, right? Because a lot of times organizations understand the need and the value to promote from within, right? That people want a path, right? People want an opportunity, and they want to see there's opportunities to grow within that organization, or they won't stay, right? So that's great, but not everybody does a great job developing and preparing people, because being a great worker, being a great doer is very different than being a great leader. They're completely different skill sets in many ways. Tell me a little bit about the details. So you said you were in that development program for about a year. So tell me what kind of things they took you through in that development program.
So at that point, you start learning how to open accounts. You start dabbling in loans. A lot of times you're shadowing your manager or assistant managers, just kind of watching them through the process, taking notes, figuring it out as you go kind of thing. And then they, really get you in the seat, and then you start opening those accounts. You're working on those loans. You're building those relationships with people,
right? Making
those phone calls that seemed like they were impossible to do,
right?
When you first began, and you were trying to just figure out what to say kind of thing.
Right.
Then you get comfortable with those things. And once you get your bearings, it's just, it's just boom, boom, boom. This is what I do, and easy peasy.
Right. So did you have kind of a mentor-mentoree relationship with your manager through that process?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So Ryan Cavalier was my manager at the time, and he's got a lot of experience in banking. He was at other institutions prior to coming to SECNY. He is actually my current supervisor now, since he has also been promoted, well-deserved. But yeah, he has been my mentor. I'm very happy to have learned from him. Just very knowledgeable. He's all about policy and procedure. He's very by the book kind of thing, which is great. I mean, you don't have to, really ever question what you're doing. And if you do question it, he's going to make sure we go right to that handbook and let's figure out where it is within here. And we're going to just abide by this. And, this is what we do to make sure that we're always following policy and procedure kind of thing. Right.
So he's a process guy. That's great.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer that business and life is really all about relationships, right? And even though it's a federal credit union, I mean, it's banking, right? And at the end of the day, it is all about, and you mentioned, those relationships. So Can you share with the listeners a little bit about, and you talked about the difficulty of making the phone call, right? And I think a lot of people, whether it's public speaking before they get into it, or talking with clients and potential clients, or if they're in sales, right? Any of those things. Tell our listeners a little bit about your development and learnings, your skill sets on building relationships and relationship management.
Yeah. Well, so public speaking is something that I actually struggle with. I have been working on that for a few years now. So, I mean, my role in management and on the chamber has really helped me develop that to be what it is now. I'm obviously still working on that, as we're all still, working on everything and growing as much as we
Work
can.
in progress.
Absolutely, yes.
Right.
But, as far as my leadership role and I'd say what really got me to that point was, those training programs, the manager associate program, having that mentor.
Yeah.
And, you really just have to kind of hone in, focus on what you're doing. And when you really care about what you're doing, I think that is going to really help you excel too. Because, you see a lot of people come in, they stay for a little while, they end up maybe going somewhere else, and that's wonderful. But when you really see those people who are putting their heart into what they're doing, it really makes a difference.
Absolutely. If you have a passion for what you do, it's not work.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I love what I do now. So I want to talk for a minute about the public speaking part, because I tell people I'm an introvert by nature, and they laugh. They think I'm telling a joke, and it's actually true, right? That I struggled early on in my career. I'm a degreed engineer, and stereotypes typically have at least a little bit of truth to them. Not all, but at least about engineers, I can say not every engineer, but some of them are awkward or difficult in relating certain concepts to non-technical people. I didn't have that, but I still struggled with the fear, right, of getting up in front of people. I can tell you that, and it sounds like you had the same experience, and I'm curious if it was similar. Exactly. I still get butterflies, and I've spoken in front of boards of directors, CEOs, chairman of the boards, hundreds of people, employees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I still get those butterflies for the first few seconds, but it's the preparation. And if I know my material, then it's just a conversation. And the butterflies are gone, and now it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
And what I tell clients if I'm doing one-on-one coaching who are struggling, say, with this kind of thing, is courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is finding the strength to walk through the fear and not allow the fear to immobilize us. Right? So I still might feel a little bit of that fear, but the more I do it, the less fear I feel.
Yeah.
Right? Is that similar to what you found?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, practice makes perfect.
Right.
I think, and that plays into almost everything in life. Obviously, having people in the room that I think does help as well.
Sure.
With the chamber, it can be a group of 50 to 100 people at a time. And the more that I've got to know the people in the group, it's like you can kind of make eye contact with that person and then look over here and, I know you at this table.
Always great to focus on a familiar face.
Absolutely, yeah. So, those little things and tricks that you learn.
That's a great trick, by the way.
Yeah, definitely.
Or you can pick out one or two people, right, and kind of like you're talking to them and almost zone in on them, so you're not really seeing the other 40 or 50 or 100 people in the room.
Yep.
Right, so because people can step back, especially people new to public speaking, and be overwhelmed. All of a sudden they step up and you're in front of the room and all these people are staring at you.
Yeah.
And it can be very self-conscious, and we get all those, oh my God, right? That's awesome. I'm really glad to hear it. It's great to see the development. Let's talk a little bit about the chamber. Again, I've been with the chamber now for a little over a handful of months. I love it. I've already gotten, I won't say roped in, but volunteered for the membership committee, which has been a lot of fun to be a part of and getting to know people better. I find it to be a great group of people, very engaged, not just the business side, which is why I joined, honestly, but also the community side, very involved in the community. Can you share with the listeners a little bit about that, not just the business, but also the community connection?
Well, it's funny, when I took on the role of being the president of the Chamber of Commerce, my friends and family were coming to me and asking, why are you doing this? And, because they're like, are you being paid? And I'm like, well, no, that you're volunteering your time. And my answer was, it's about the community. It's about being involved with the community.
Right.
And when you start to help others and you see relationships being built, you see those beneficial relationships, and, you see people helping people within the community, it just really makes you feel like you're a part of something much bigger.
Yeah.
And, that's personal growth alone, just being a part of something like that. So,
Absolutely.
it's a big deal to me. It feels like, it's a big role, and I'm happy to be a part of it. I hope that I can step up to that role and really make the chamber proud of me.
I'm sure you will. And given your track record of growth and personal development, I'm sure this is just another opportunity for you to not only personally develop, but to let that light shine in that broader community, which is so cool, right, to see and be a part of. Let's talk a little more about the chamber, and if somebody's out there in the Cicero Plank Road, so it's Cicero, what are all the areas that it covers?
So we have Brewerton, Bridgeport, Cicero, Hinsdale, Mattydale, and Clay.
Okay. And for the listeners that might not understand or know this, a little bit of history, why the Plank Road?
We have a historian, Howie Kruger, who is the owner of Kruger Funeral Homes.
And a very interesting character.
He is, yes. Yeah. He's very entertaining. We love Howie.
Yeah.
So I've heard that the original Plank Road was, I forget the material it was made out of, but it would turn yellow after like the horses and carriages went across it.
Yeah.
So, they decided to kind of stick with that, and they took Plank Road was the original name of the chamber.
Right.
I believe there was Plank Road and Cicero Chamber of Commerce, and then they did join at one point a few years ago, a little before my time. But I believe it was, they went with that history that was part of Cicero. That Plank Road was right there, and they put it in the name. Yeah,
and that Plank Road is the current Route 11 here locally, and that used to allow farmers up from the North Country as far north as, I believe, Central Square to bring their produce and products down into the North Syracuse area. Yes. Yeah, and so there's quite a bit of history there. And you mentioned the yellowing of it. So L. Frank Baum, who wrote The Wizard of Oz, apparently stayed or lived for some period of time in that area right on the Plank Road. And so, of course, Howie, the local historian you mentioned, talks about how there's no proof for this, but there's a strong belief that he had some inspiration for the yellow brick road from the Plank Road as it yellowed with this. I forget the type of wood they use, but Howie did tell us about that. It was a very specific wood that they use for the planking, and it would actually turn yellow because of the traffic on the Plank Road. So it's very, very cool history there.
Yes, yeah. We had a Java talk at the Historical Society of Cicero recently, and I believe Scott Lasik asked them what was the oldest piece of history they had in the building, and they pointed to a plank that was on Plank Road.
A piece of the road.
Yep.
Yeah, I was there that morning. That was very cool. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, very interesting place, Dave. If you haven't been there, that is the Cicero Historical Society.
Yes.
And I believe that's right off of Route 31.
That's right.
Yeah, in Cicero. Very interesting place if you get a chance to visit it. So if somebody is interested or on the fence maybe about joining the Chamber of Commerce for Cicero Plank Road, what would be your elevator speech, if you would? What would be the unique proposition to get them interested?
So the conversations I've been having recently have been, if you're looking to build your business, you're looking to be a part of the community, just build some connections within the community, come and join us. We're a great group of people. We have a lot of fun. Our Java talks and our luncheons are always a great time with a pretty good turnout typically.
Yep.
So, really it's a way for people to build their business, get their name out there, and just be a part of something bigger.
Absolutely. And I can attest to it that's been very true, even in the short time that I've been a member. Met some wonderful people, Scott and Tim with NAVAC. What a wonderful, that's the local local ambulance corps. Wonderful people, service a huge area, a tremendous job that they do, and just how talented and dedicated that group is. I've had a chance to get to know some of them and actually did some little bit of work with them, presenting some information to help them with strategic planning. And some other people I bet you mentioned Howie and some of the others. It's just a fascinating group of people from such diverse backgrounds, and yet are so passionate not only about their businesses but about the community, as you mentioned. And it is cool. It's cool to be a part of it, even though I've lived out in the area for a number of years. It's been eye-opening. And a friend of mine, John Annable, our friend Karate John, has been after me for a number of years to join the chamber, and I finally did. And I have only one regret, is I wish I would have done it sooner. So it's been a great ride, and I'm looking forward to continued involvement. So.
Oh yeah, we're happy that you had joined us, and I mean, as part of the membership committee, we're looking to gather at least 40 more members this year. I think we've got between 5 and 10 at least already in these past few months.
Yeah, great start.
Yeah,
great start.
A few certificates already.
Yeah, today's luncheon.
Yeah. It's been great. So our goals are set, and we have raised the bar a little bit there for that membership goal, and I think we can absolutely do it. We've got plenty of businesses in the area. We've got entrepreneurs, and I mean, there's a lot of upcoming businesses as well. So we love to do our ribbon cuttings. So if anyone hears of anything coming up in the area, we'll always be there with our ribbon and our big scissors, so we can welcome them to the community. And whether or not they become part of the chamber is up to them. But we always recommend, if you're really new to the area, especially, then we'll help you get your name out there.
Yeah, and it's great free PR, right? When they do a ribbon cutting with us, right? We help get that out there to all of our members.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
we invite them all.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I got to say, it's been a pleasure having you on. And again, thank you so much for coming in and being a guest. And can't wait to see what the rest of your tenure as president brings.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. I'm excited to see what the future brings.
Thank you, Emily.